The U.S. pulled its remaining troops out of Afghanistan this week, formally ending America's longest war. Their departure also marked an end to emergency evacuation efforts, at least those efforts by air. More than 100,000 people were airlifted from the capital, but thousands more, including many who want to come to Canada, remain stranded. Crossing into neighboring countries like Pakistan appears to be their best, if only, option.
We are going to be talking with Pakistan to tell them that if anybody does arrive at that border or other neighboring countries, we would like them to facilitate their entry. And of course, our embassies and consulates are waiting to process them to get them onto Canada.
So that call between Minister Garneau and the Pakistani foreign minister has now happened, and we'd like to know what Pakistan is prepared to do. Ameer Khurram Rathore is Pakistan's High-Commissioner-designate to Canada. He is in Ottawa. High-Commissioner-designate, welcome to the program. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for the invitation, sir.
I am speaking to you, of course, at a time that many Afghans are seeking to leave their country, seeking to come to others, including Afghans who work for Canadian organizations and might be able to get a visa to Canada. What efforts is Pakistan willing to make in terms of helping those people exit? So in particular, if they can make it overland to one of your borders, would your authorities be able to rapidly facilitate the entry of those Afghans into Pakistan and then onwards to countries like Canada?
Yes. Let me give you a brief background. We have so far operated, the Pakistan International Airline has so far operated 332 special flights from Kabul to Islamabad. We have evacuated around 10,000 people who are various nationalities, NGOs, international organizations. And the data that I have is specifically for the Canadian civilians, through land border, we have so far accepted 9 Canadians, and through air, 24 have been evacuated. So this is the situation so far. We, the government of Pakistan, seizing of the situation, created what we call a ministerial cell, which is the focal point for facilitating all evacuations from Kabul. Pakistan Embassy in Kabul is providing 24 hours consular service. We are issuing more than 1,000 visas per day. These are for the people who want to travel to Pakistan via land route.
Okay, so let me pick up on that just for a moment, High Commissioner, only because, as you well know, the lineups to just get to your mission in Kabul are very, very long, very difficult to get in, and many Afghans who might be eligible to come to Canada, for instance, are finding it very, very difficult to sort of get the permission to be able to exit. So if there are people who have the paperwork from Canada saying that they can come to Canada, what would happen to them? Can they very rapidly get a visa at a border point? How can you expedite the facilitation of their travel?
So far, the visa facility available in Kabul is specifically for the land route people who want to come to Pakistan through land. There has not been a system established yet whereby people could enter through land border into Pakistan without a visa. But we have extended this facility through to the people who are coming through air. They can get the visa upon arrival into Pakistan. But we are working on a system. Today, you must be knowing, the Canadian Foreign Minister had a very productive conversation with the Pakistani Foreign Minister, focusing on these issues. And I'm very hopeful that we will come up with a system to facilitate the Canadians and the people who want to come to Canada for their evacuation.
Okay, and I'm certain between our two countries' foreign ministers, those conversations are likely to continue. But I did want to talk about Afghanistan itself, because there'll be far more people who will be staying in that country than those who are leaving. And they're staying in a country that will very clearly be run by the Taliban. It is a group that has found, according to many analysts, sanctuary in Pakistan, particularly in some of the border areas in the past. There have been many analysts and many reports suggesting that Pakistan's intelligence services have had connections, have supported the Taliban in years past, going back from its near destruction post 9/11, really up to today. I wonder how you respond to some of the concerns that Pakistan, if not, helped orchestrate the situation that we now find ourselves in, but at least did not attempt to stop it. How do you respond to those kinds of concerns?
Well, I think that is a lot of misinformation and a narrative which has been built up to corner Pakistan. The matter of the fact is that the previous Afghan government had a military and air force which was 300,000 strong. And as for the sanctuaries, you are well aware, Taliban, there was never a time in Afghanistan where Taliban did not hold a substantial portion of the country. So it makes no sense to me that if Taliban has land, has
okay, but sir, I mean, we saw over a number of decades, we saw Taliban fighters who would, conduct attacks in southern Afghanistan and would retreat back over the border and then would come back over the mountains. And there was a constant back and forth. Osama bin Laden was found in your country. There were multiple instances of Western intelligence agencies being concerned about what Pakistan's intelligence services in particular were doing related to the Taliban. I just wonder, this is your neighboring country now. So what is the relationship likely to be between these two countries, one in which the Taliban runs it, a group that has at the very least connections inside Pakistan?
Okay, two points in this regard. This is precisely the reason, that is why Pakistan erected a fence between Afghanistan and Pakistan. It is not a small border, 2,680 kilometers long. Mm-hmm. So that we built that fence just to counter such propaganda that there's a free flow of movement of terrorists between Pakistan.
Sorry, you built a fence to counter propaganda? Is that what you're saying?
To the movement, the propaganda about the movement that Talibans are coming and going from Pakistan to Afghanistan. That's not the right thing, and that's why we built this fence and we made certain border crossings to avoid any such eventuality that the people could pass freely between Pakistan and Afghanistan. That I think is and the second most important thing, and you must be very well aware of that, that this is a different Taliban. There has been a generational shift. The original Taliban, of which we talk a lot, were the people who were raised in the refugee camps in Pakistan. But these Taliban, they are homegrown. They have been living in Afghanistan. So the links, I fail to understand. We have a substantial number of Pashtun population in Pakistan, and Talibans are primarily Pashtun. So there are lots of linkages between this ethnic group. But blaming the government of Pakistan for the failure of the international coalition in Afghanistan, I think it is carrying it a bit too far.
You say, sir, that it's a different Taliban. And I'm curious to get your thoughts on that, because when the Taliban first came to power in 1991, they said it will be gentle, it will be kind, don't worry. And then when the world's attention sort of turned away, things got fairly brutal and stayed that way for quite some time. So what confidence should we have that what the Taliban is saying now, and they're knocking on people's doors, people who worked for Western organizations, there have been reports of extrajudicial killings already. What confidence should we have that this is indeed a different Taliban?
That is precisely the reason. What we are suggesting to the world, to the international community, is that we have to remain engaged with the Taliban. That is the only leverage we would have. Taliban, they are saying okay things right now, but we are also waiting. Let's wait and see how they act. But one thing Pakistan is very certain about is that what we would want to see for peace in Afghanistan is an inclusive government, a government which is created through a consultative process which should include all the ethnic groups and the people of different shades of opinion. And only such a government, such a government in Afghanistan would be able to bring peace. And on the other hand, the same point from another angle, international community has spent a lot, invested a lot in the people of Afghanistan, for the women, for education, a host of things.
Canada to the tune of $15-16 billion. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The only way to preserve that investment is to engage with Taliban. If we do not engage with them, the recognition by the international community is the leverage that needs to be taken at this point in time. And for us, yes.
Absolutely. Mr. High Commissioner-designate, I know you have a long diplomatic career behind you. You're just beginning your time. You're posting to Canada. So we certainly thank you for your time and hope to have you back on the program again soon.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Shuvaloy Majumdar served as Director of Policy to successive Conservative Ministers of Foreign Affairs, and he's provided advice on the federal Conservative platform and regularly engaged as well with senior Liberals. Mr. Majumdar has also led large-scale democracy assistance projects in Iraq and Afghanistan. He now serves as the Foreign Policy Director and a Monk Senior Fellow at the Macdonald-Laurier Institute. We want to get his thoughts on all of this, and he is in Calgary. Okay, Shuvaloy, lots to break down there from our conversation with the Pakistan High Commissioner-designate. Can I start with the idea of recognizing the Taliban government and that the Taliban is, as he claimed, a new, gentler, kindler, a different version of the Taliban? Your thoughts?
Well, listen, the Taliban have never enjoyed broad public support in Afghanistan. The elected government of Afghanistan, back through 6 elections of now Amrullah Saleh, the first vice president of the country after Ashraf Ghani, the president, fled, is the legitimate constitutional government of Afghanistan. What we're seeing today is a presentation of the Taliban as responsible power, somehow moderated, somehow essential to the key of the country of Afghanistan's success. It has no legitimacy. A lot of the fighters have come across from Pakistan to seize various Afghan strategic assets and are now subjugating the people to a different type of order. You've seen in Afghanistan already kill lists being developed. You're seeing media reporting with Taliban fighters standing behind them. You've seen women's rights advocates being killed. Hazaras and other ethnic minorities are being killed. So what you're seeing in Kabul through the narrow prism of what the Taliban and Pakistan are presenting, I think, is a false reality around what the actual intentions of the Taliban are.
Do you think it
and
is
the actual
right to
intentions of
engage
the
with
Taliban are aligned with Pakistan?
Is it right to engage with the Taliban, or is it inevitable?
I think at some point, because of the way that the Taliban now controls the country, we have to assess that the reality of the Taliban and their Pakistani backers are certainly controlling choke points for the government. But the Taliban have no capacity to govern. I also think it's an equal portion essential for us to engage the national resistance of Afghanistan, which is that first Vice President Amrullah Saleh represents out of Panjshir. That's an area of Afghanistan that the Taliban have never been able to conquer. And they are now beginning their outreach with other parts of Afghanistan that are posing a resistance to the country. So when we think of Afghanistan, we can't think of it as just Taliban controlled with their Pakistani backers. We have to think about the entirety of the country and how do we engage those who oppose the Taliban, its extremism, and those who do not want to walk back the kinds of rights and gains that Afghans have come to expect.
What are you suggesting? You think we should arm them?
I think that we should be seriously reflecting about how we support the Afghan national resistance, whether it's those who are acting through civil disobedience, those who are confronting the Taliban militarily. I think we should be examining the full range of support, whether it's humanitarian or material, and we should do so in concert with our friends and our allies in defense of the Afghan people.
Let me just talk to you about the High Commissioner-designate's essentially claim that Pakistan and the Taliban are two separate entities completely, and that there has not been material support of any kind from Pakistan, whether it's ISI, its intelligence agencies, or any other group. You've said quite the opposite. You've said, as many have said, that Pakistan and the Taliban, while they have a complicated relationship, that there has long been material support over many decades. How do you know that?
Listen, Mullah Baradar, who is now being presented as a leader of the Taliban in Afghanistan, from 2001 till 2008, waged and led the command of the Taliban against the Canadian Armed Forces in Kandahar. He did it for 8 years. He was picked up by Pakistan's intelligence because he was kind of going off script, and then released under Barack Obama and American pressure to lead Taliban negotiations for what this idea, this shell game of negotiations, was designed to result in creating a franchise for these extremists. We know that there are certain absolute facts. The Taliban are being advised by Pakistani military and intelligence on the ground today in Afghanistan. We know that the wounded Taliban are being treated inside Pakistan. We know that the Taliban were created by Pakistan's ISI. They had focus grouped the name the Taliban when they were looking at how to update the Mujahideen that they'd used to fight the communists. We know that a lot of the Taliban leaders are double-hatted across the spate of terrorist networks in Afghanistan, whether it's the Haqqani network or others, and into South Asia. Mm-hmm. And we know that Imran Khan, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, has been celebrating the Taliban victory as having represented casting off the shackles of Western occupation inside Afghanistan. The High Commissioner-designate has to respond to the fact that Pakistan has been a material backer of the Taliban over the last 20 years because of their intelligence apparatuses, objectives of creating instability. And I think ultimately the military of Pakistan has to make a decision and be induced to make that decision to stop their forever war inside Afghanistan.
Shiv, I've got less than a minute here, but I want to just turn the attention to those Afghans who supported Canadian organizations in some way, who didn't make it out in the airlift and are looking for a way to go out overland. Given everything that you're saying about Pakistan and the very fact that some of these people would pass through the very tribal areas in which it has long been alleged that Taliban fighters occupy, do you think it's safe for them to pass through an area where Pakistan forces are going to know their names and see them moving?
Listen, the Pakistan and Taliban have been creating they've inherited huge amounts of data with how the Americans have irresponsibly withdrawn. Kabul itself is very difficult to depart. There are Taliban and other checkpoints throughout the country limiting passage. The Taliban are now fiercely fighting the resistance in Panjshir. There is some word of land crossings through Mazar-e Sharif to Uzbekistan, but those are very precarious, very difficult. A lot of our Afghan friends, the people we supported, the people who want dignity and peace and freedom, are terrified that they have no material way to leave the city or even move around the city with safety. And so, it's very, it's a false promise that, Pakistan's embassy and its facilitation of Afghan refugees is sincere. If they were sincere, then they would enable overflights from India to go over Pakistan to Afghanistan rather than all the way around over an Iranian border into the country. This is not a country that is actually acting as part of an international effort to provide humanitarian assistance to the Afghan people.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there. Shuvaloy Majumdar, thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks, David.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.